this is Karen from White Willow, and today we are going to make worm beds. So I started my garden a while ago. I think most of you saw it last year where I had it in a bunch of raised bed pottings all over my patio. Well, this year my son built this amazing garden, so I'll show you a little bit of that in clips attached to this video. But we're going to look at a worm bed so that we can capture to harvest the worm castings, which are going to be great fertilizer for the garden. So it all goes full circle. I'm doing the vermiculture for the worms, I'm doing a compost bin, and I'm doing the raised bed garden. And I'm getting my own slips off of my sweet potatoes. I'm creating my own extract out of mint, pineapple, vanilla bean. So it's just a lot of fun to try to keep yourself your own ecosystem per se, but not entirely, and get things going and growing. So we have a bin here. This is a 27-gallon bin. This is from Sam's. It literally is a very heavy-duty bin. I'm just going to dump it out a little bit because it has all the air holes that I drilled into it on it still. I'm going to drill a few more, but I drilled the air holes, if you can see, all around the top. I'm not sure if they're big enough yet. We will soon find out. I'm also drilling them on the lid. So my first mistake on the previous lid was I went ahead and drilled them in the grooves. Well, you don't want them in the grooves in case water gets on the lid, because then it's going to soak into the worm bed. So I put them on the raised areas of the lid. I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up, and we'll dump it out again. So there we have it. All of the plastic we want to make sure we get out of the bins that we just drilled on. So this will be the worm bed. Now we're not going to fill it that far. We're just going to fill it about maybe 6-7 inches, but it's going to have a mixture of different textures and substance. I went ahead and bought some worm grit. You don't have to. We live in Florida. I just didn't feel like digging any out of the yard today, so I went ahead and got some while I was at Worm Nerds earlier this morning. Worm Nerds is in Apopka, Florida. This is an endorsement for them. It's the only worm farm I knew of, so I went ahead on out there this morning. This is just the grid. So in this bin, it's empty. Air holes are put around it. Air holes are on the lid. Now what I put in this bucket, this is probably not the best setup here near my fire pit, but this is this cocoa coir, and what this does is when you add water, it expands into this fluff. So I went ahead and did that early, and you can kind of see this really, it looks like vermiculite, if anybody knows what that is. You want it to be moist and form when you squeeze it, but you don't want it dripping wet. So this is just one brick. You can kind of see how much it made for one brick. So I'm going to pour this one brick into the bin and see how far that goes. If it's still kind of dry, I'm going to go ahead and spot this up. If it's still kind of dry, which it isn't, I might have a couple little lumps here, but they bust up pretty easy. So for the most part, it's perfect. So on top of this, actually what we mix in with it, we're going to mix paper. I might want to add one more brick to this just because it's kind of deep. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up one more bucket of water, just about a quarter of the way, and put the brick in and let it absorb again. Okay, so now we've mixed the other up, and we're going to go ahead and pour that into the bucket, and we're going to mix it all up together. See if we got it on the bottom. a little bit damper on the bottom. We'll get that out and mixed in with the dryer. Okay, that looks good. So we're just gonna stir this up. You can see it's pretty rich. It's some good soil for worm beds. There doesn't appear to be any chunks in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill the bucket up. Let me show you that real quick. With some paper. Now, I didn't have a lot of shredded paper, so I went ahead and shredded Amazon boxes. And this works wonderfully. It's thick. You have to dampen it a little bit because you don't want it to soak up all the moisture that is in the worm bed. I'm going to add a lot to this. I have 2 worm beds, so I want to make sure I have enough for 2. I bought those bins at Sam's Club for $11. They were $10.97 for a 27-gallon. So that is about perfect to start this worm bed. I'm not an expert and you're learning along with me, so this is just what I have researched, that you probably don't want it to be over 50 gallons, but around 30 is a pretty good amount. So these are a little damp. I'm going to go ahead and get the water off the bottom of it. Now there's no drain hole in the bottom of the bins. Some videos say to do it, some don't. The only thing I'm concerned about is if my air holes are big enough. So we will see. This back over. We're going to take this dampened paper and we're going to just go ahead and pour it in. And we're going to mix it up. I am really not one person that's going to say, oh, you want to use gloves. I'm not a glove person. I don't use gloves. I have to wash my hands extra just because I don't use gloves. So this could probably use a little more paper in it, but we're gonna leave it at that for right now. I can always add some later. I'm just gonna get the soil out of the corners. I just want to make sure I get both my bins going. I have 1 pound of worms. Well, actually I have 4 pounds of worms. I'm going to do 2 pounds in this bed and then 2 pounds in the other bed. Now I went ahead and got some stuff from my refrigerator, my neighbor's refrigerator, my family's refrigerator, of vegetables that were, you know, they were going to have to throw out. So I didn't take anything real mushy or real soft, but I went ahead and I have Brussels sprouts in here, some apples, some carrots, some mushrooms, some spinach. I went ahead and put it through the food processor just because these worms are going to a new environment and I didn't want it to be too difficult for them. But we're going to go ahead and dump half of this into this bed. So it's going to be about 4 cups. I want to make sure that it's good and mixed. So I'm going to throw it back into the bin here and mix it up. Now I'm going to make like a little divot on this side. Kind of move that dirt over here. Still covered with some dirt, but I want to make a divot. Now I'm going to go ahead and put about 3 cups of food into this area, okay? So that's right about there. Now, in Florida, we have tons of sand, but I did buy some grit. So you want to use 1/4 of the grit that you use of food. So I'm just going to sprinkle that over the food. Worms do not have teeth. So they need this to assist them on digesting the vegetables or the food. So here's my worms, again, worm nerds. I'm gonna go ahead, I did wet them down a little bit, so they might be a little bit, you can see them. These are red wigglers. And I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle them over the food. Woo! There's some good worms right there. Can you see them? They kind of clumped together, but the water kind of broke them apart. I don't know if you can see these or not, but they are tons and tons of worms. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of sprinkle them around. They do not like the light. So I'm just gonna shove this side of the dirt over onto them. I'm gonna leave a little bit over there. Now, one thing that they said you'll have to be careful of at the beginning is because it's a new environment for them. They can try to crawl out. So you want to make sure these holes in the side are not too big, but yet you want them to have enough aeration. So we are going to leave this like this, and we are going to see what happens. The idea is to check to see how much they have digested within a few days and then within a week. So you can see about how much they're eating. Some websites say to feed them once a week, and some say to feed them every few days. So what we'll do is we'll double check to see how much of that vegetables is ate. There was apples in there, spinach, Brussels sprouts, carrots. So we'll see what this does. I guess they really like fruit, so if I can find any neighbors with some watermelon or cantaloupe, it is winter, so it's very doubtful, but I want to just see how they digest that and how quickly they digest that compared to the harder vegetables. So there they are. You can kind of go in here and relook and see all these delightful little worms, and they're going to make their way down into the food. So there we have it. So there we have it. I'm going to go ahead and close this one up, and I'll start on the next one. I'm going to have two 27-gallon bins for worm castings. You do not want to leave these on the ground, on the concrete. If it's cold and you're in the winter and you're up north, you can bring them in the house. They're going to be fine. Otherwise, I've heard that you can wrap them up in a blanket and then keep them in your garage. But they're going to want to go into a more dormant stage in the winter time, and they're going to be a little more active when it's a little warmer outside. So we're going to go ahead and cover this with paper. I'm just going to put some paper over the top of it. This supposedly helps prevent them from crawling out or wanting to crawl out. So they feel like they have some sort of limit to their surface. And then we're going to spray this down. That's it for today on worm castings. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share and follow White Willow. And thanks for watching.